Okay. So this bit is about coffee. Personally, I don't drink it, never have drunk it, don't know why, but I like the smell of it. Like a turf fire. And a new study...
Apart from on my breath.
Yeah, I like the smell of Guinness, but I don't drink that either. And this new study has found that the strength of coffee varies massively depending on which chain store you buy it from.
And it's quite interesting. Pret's single espresso had 6 times as much caffeine as Starbucks, according to the consumer watchdog Which.
So why does that matter? I have no idea. Here is the co-founder and CEO of TrueStart Coffee, Helena Hills. Helena, very good to talk to you. What do you make of this? I mean, they've measured Costa, Pret, Greg's, Nero, Starbucks, all of different measurements of caffeine. I have no idea whether it's the caffeine that counts or the taste that counts, or indeed looking at the price of a cup of coffee, it's the price that counts, because it seems scandalous how much it can be for a small cup of coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the caffeine in coffee does vary loads. It's funny because I've been banging on about this for years and now people are talking about it a lot more. But there are loads of variables that affect the caffeine in coffee. So everything from the species of bean, whether it's Robusta, Arabica or a blend, to the rainfall on that crop even. We're talking about a natural product with loads of intrinsic variation. The altitude it's grown at, the brew method, and beyond. So there was another study a few years ago, a BBC one, also of high street coffee shops, found a crazy variation from 50 to over 300 milligrams. And if you add another espresso shot into your coffee, extra tired that morning, you can easily be drinking over 600 milligrams of caffeine in one coffee without realizing. And actually, even if you go into the same store a few weeks later and order the same thing, the caffeine will vary. So those numbers that were just up on the screen, they're not going to be the same if you go in sort of the next day and order the same thing. And that's why you feel so... Yeah, sorry, go on.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. No, I was just thinking, you know, we talked, didn't we, about the introduction of calories onto menus, and I thought, well, the way around this for people who are breastfeeding or pregnant or whatever, they might have heart conditions that mean they have to control the amount of caffeine that they have. Why not just, you know, put it on a menu? But as you say, that's not possible.
Yeah, that's not possible with freshly brewed coffee because the brew method has so many variations, even from the person making it to another person, that it will just still vary. But it is crazy. I mean, it's why we started our business in the first place, to have a reliably caffeinated coffee. It's the first coffee in the world to do that, because you wouldn't be happy with the massive variation with alcohol. You wouldn't particularly enjoy going into a supermarket and buying a bottle of wine and not knowing whether it was 4% or 40%. And that is the reality, really. And it's why people often talk about feeling different after a cup of coffee versus another, you know, jittery, maybe heart palpitations, and sometimes that coffee feels like it hasn't done anything. And that's why, you know.
Helena, isn't the truth that in Britain we're actually quite used to a poor quality of coffee and we fill it full of other things?
We're getting better, but definitely, yeah.
I mean, generally, in these chain stores, it's not good stuff.
Well, I mean, that is a really good point. I think it's not necessarily just the coffee either. In this country, a really high percentage of us fill our coffee with milk and sugar. So caffeinated coffee in itself is not bad for you, like far from it. There's loads of research now and evidence that's proven the health benefits. So everything from reduced risk of chronic heart diseases, having Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is reduced the risk. And then there was a health study, a nurse's health study, that associated drinking 4 or more cups of coffee a day with a 20% lower risk of a stroke compared to non-drinkers. So all that is great stuff, but coffee can become bad for you when you're loading it with milk and sugar. And that's really common in high street coffee shops, especially because the coffee is, you're right, it's not necessarily as good, certainly not as good as an independent roaster, for example, who are really focused on quality more so than laser focused on profit per cup. And that means the taste isn't necessarily great when it's black, so people want to add loads of sugar
and milk and things in it. Now, Helena, let me ask you this, right? My esteemed colleague beside me here, she likes her coffee. She likes to get one, and you talk about giving you a lift, giving you a boost, and whatever it is. Is it possible to have a cup of coffee? I understand people get the high. Can you have a cup of coffee without having the low that follows? Must the low follow?
No, not necessarily. The crash comes when you overdose, when you overload your system with effectively too much caffeine. It's the same as sugar. So if you're having like a regulated sort of reasonable level that works for your body, you won't feel a crash. And that's really the important thing, is understanding your own brain and body, because something that people may not know is we do not all metabolize caffeine at the same rate. So there is actually a gene which dictates whether you are a slow or a fast metabolizer of caffeine.
Like alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a fast metabolizer because I'm actually very sensitive to caffeine, but I feel the effects quickly and they disappear quite quickly. I drink loads of cups of TrueStart in a day. But if you're somebody who feels post-caffeine jitters for sort of hours after one cup of coffee, you're probably a slow metabolizer. And it's worth knowing yourself so that you drink as much coffee as is right for you. You know, how do you feel physically, mentally, emotionally after you drink coffee and a few hours after? It's important, you know.
Okay, really quickly, if you were to pluck a figure out of thin air, because we're out of time, but I really need to ask you this, is 325 milligrams overdosing? I mean, what should your average cup of decent coffee be in terms of milligrams? What number?
Well, 300 milligrams per day is considered the safe limit suggested by most health organisations around the world. A cup of TrueStart has 75 milligrams, so you can have 4, for example.
Okay, interesting. Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. And talking about interesting and perfect, Helena, could I just say, I love your hair.
I have a wig like that.
Look,
I have a big bob wig for parties, and it looks great.
Parties,
I love it.
for parties. Why don't you wear it in here?
Well, because this doesn't work.
That looks a really good look, good look.
Lovely.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Helena.
Cheers.
Thanks.
I want another coffee now, though. I'm twitching. Need one. Quick.
So what have you learnt at the end of all that?
I've learnt that I love coffee, and I'm never stepping foot in Starbucks ever again.
Why? Because
it doesn't have. It's expensive, and it doesn't give me what I want.
Okay.